It is the spring of 1971, and a Formula One constructor that has existed for exactly 2 years is about to finish second in the World Championship. Not second in a race, second in the championship, behind Ferrari, in front of Tyrrell, BRM, Matra and every other established name in the sport. The team has no factory in the conventional sense. Their cars are hand-built in a converted industrial unit in Bicester, Oxfordshire, by a group of engineers young enough that several of them have never worked on a Formula One car before. Their total operating budget for the 1971 season is smaller than what Ferrari spends on a single test day at Fiorano. The driver who will take them to second place in the championship is a 27-year-old Swede named Ronnie Peterson, who drives with a commitment so absolute that rival engineers began referring to his data not as a reference for what was fast, but as a reference for what was possible. Peterson could extract performance from a car that its own designers had not known was available. In 1971, he extracted more of it than anyone except Jackie Stewart. This is the story of the March 751, the car that nobody built a museum exhibit for. The car that finished second in the World Championship and disappeared from Formula One's collective memory as completely as if it had never existed. And the question that the archive data raises, when you look at it carefully, was the 1971 championship as settled as the result sheet suggests? Stay with this, because by the time you reach Monza in September 1971, you will understand exactly how close a 2-year-old team with no factory and no history came to winning the most prestigious prize in motorsport. March Engineering was founded in 1969 by 4 men: Max Mosley, Alan Rees, Graham Coker and Robin Hurd, the acronym of their surnames, arranged to produce something pronounceable. Hurd was the designer. Mosley, who would later become FIA president, handled commercial operations. None of them had a track record in Formula One construction. Their business model was unusual. Most constructors kept their technical knowledge proprietary. March would sell cars to anyone who could pay. In their first year, they sold Formula One cars to Tyrrell, who used them to campaign Jackie Stewart while Tyrrell's own car was being developed. The revenue funded the March Works program. It was, by the standards of Formula One at the time, an almost industrialized approach to racing car production. The March 711 was the third Formula One car the company had built, and the first one that Robin Hurd had designed without the compromises imposed by the impossibly tight timeline of the company's first 2 seasons. The 711 was a conventional car by the standards of the early 1970s, a tubular space-frame chassis, Ford Cosworth DFV engine, producing approximately 450 horsepower, conventional double wishbone suspension front and rear. What distinguished it was not any single technical innovation, but the quality of the execution. Hurd had had time, for the first time, to get the aerodynamics right. The 711's most distinctive visual feature was its visor-style front wing, a large, single-element wing that extended across the full width of the car at nose height, giving it an appearance unlike any other car on the 1971 grid. This was not styling. It was a specific aerodynamic solution to the problem of generating front downforce on a car whose nose geometry made conventional multi-element front wings difficult to package. The visor wing was controversial. Rivals questioned whether it was fully effective, but the data from testing at Silverstone in the winter of 1970-71 showed that the 711's aerodynamic balance was better than anything March had previously produced. Peterson joined the March Works team for 1971, having driven for them the previous year, with results that suggested the car was limiting him more than his ability was limiting the car. This was the assessment of March's engineers after reviewing his 1970 telemetry against the telemetry of the more experienced drivers on the team. Peterson's inputs were cleaner, his lines were more consistent, and his corner exit traction was superior, which meant the car, not the driver, was the variable that needed improving. The 1971 season began in South Africa, and Peterson's pace in the 7 Rheinrennen was immediately apparent. He qualified third. He ran second in the early laps before a mechanical problem ended his race. At Monaco, the circuit where the quality of a car's mechanical grip and handling balance matters more than aerodynamic load, Peterson qualified second, less than 1/10 of a second behind Stewart's Tyrrell, which was at that point in the season the fastest car in Formula One. He finished second in the race, 30 seconds behind Stewart but ahead of every other car. On a circuit where the machinery gap between the Tyrrell and the rest of the field was considered decisive, the March 7 RN11 had produced a result that required explanation. The explanation was Peterson. But the data, when you examine it, shows that the explanation was also the car. The 711's handling balance at Monaco, the ratio of front grip to rear grip through the slow corners, was within the window that the circuit demands. The Tyrrell's was marginally better. The gap between them was not the gap between a championship-winning car and a backmarker. It was the gap between first and second place. On a different day, on a different lap, with a different safety car period, or a different tyre choice, the result could have been different. Peterson finished on the podium at France, Britain, Germany and Austria. He finished second overall in the Drivers' Championship, 33 points behind Stewart. The margin sounds comfortable. In the points system of 1971, 9 for a win, 6 for second, it represented approximately 3 race wins of net advantage. Across 11 rounds, 3 race wins is not comfortable. It is the difference between a team that led every race and a team that had a mechanical failure in 2 of the races it could have won. The March 711's reliability record in 1971 included 4 retirements. 3 of them occurred in races where Peterson's qualifying position and early race pace suggested he was in contention for victory. The Italian Grand Prix at Monza, the race that most clearly illustrates what the 711 might have been, saw Peterson run in the leading group until a fuel system problem ended his race in the closing stages. Monza in 1971 was decided by the length of a tyre at a photo finish. Peterson was not in that photo finish because his car stopped. He would have been had it not. This is the revisionist case for the March 711. Not that Peterson should have won the championship. Stewart was exceptional in 1971, and the Tyrrell was a more developed and more reliable machine, but that the margin was smaller than the points table records, that the car was better than its constructor's age and budget had any right to produce, and that Ronnie Peterson drove it at a level that contemporary observers recognized as extraordinary, but that the championship results failed to fully reflect. March survived as a constructor until the early 1990s. Robin Herd remained their chief designer. Mosley left to pursue the regulatory career that would make him one of the most influential figures in the sport's history. The March 711 sits, where it sits at all, in private collections and occasional historic racing events. It does not have a dedicated museum presence. The 1971 season is remembered as the year Jackie Stewart won his second championship, and the March is a footnote. The footnote finished second in the World Championship with a driver who had never previously won a Formula One race, in a car built by a company that had existed for 2 years, on a budget that Ferrari's catering department would have found modest. What that footnote actually represents, when you examine the race data from Monza, Monaco and Austria, is a car closer to the front of Formula One than anyone who was not there at the time seems to have understood. The championship was not as settled as the result sheet suggests. It never is. If you found this useful, subscribe. There are more stories like this one in the archive, and more coming. Leave a comment below. Which overlooked championship should we examine next? The 1979 season, where the Williams FW07 redefined what a ground effect car could be, or the 1983 season, where Brabham's pit stop strategy rewrote how races are won.